Cardinals cut DeAndre Hopkins. Bit surprising to some, not to me. I said that was going to happen weeks ago. No big deal. What are the best landing spots for him? We are here, ESPN NFL Live. Let's go ahead and listen to what Tim Hasselbeck has to say.
Potential interest in Hopkins' services around the NFL.
I'll go ahead and answer first. I like to answer first so that it doesn't look like I'm just repeating what they're saying. I think Hopkins is going to go to a contender. I think Hopkins is going to go, I would say the Chiefs are probably the top team that I could see doing something like this. The Chiefs, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. They certainly have room for him in the wide receiver room. It's always good to bring in a player like that in a system where it's kind of like how the Patriots did with Randy Moss. Not that DeAndre Hopkins is Randy Moss, but when you bring a player like that into a system that's as good as the Chiefs system or as good as the Patriots system was back then, they don't have a choice but to, get in line and just say, okay, I believe. Okay, I'm here. I'm ready to rock and roll. I don't have to bring any baggage with me. I'm ready to roll. I'm ready to play. And I know if I do my job, I'll win a Super Bowl, or I'll at least be able to compete for a Super Bowl. So it just seems like it makes the most sense for both parties to go to Kansas City. Now, another team would be Baltimore. Okay, Baltimore would be interesting because they just, did what they did this entire offseason with Lamar Jackson. And now that he's back, you would think they're going to try and really make him happy there. And getting him DeAndre Hopkins would be huge. That would be a very different Ravens offense we've seen before. And honestly, y'all know I'm a big Lamar Jackson fan. Lamar with a receiver like DeAndre Hopkins is terrifying. What do you do if you are a defense? Now, another team that people have been throwing around that I don't see is the Patriots. It makes sense for the Patriots as far as the scheme goes, but it doesn't make sense for them with Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien is the offensive coordinator for the Patriots. Bill O'Brien was DeAndre Hopkins' coach in Houston, and they do not like each other. So I can't imagine DeAndre Hopkins is going to go to New England. Now, the Jets is a team that people kind of threw around there, but I think the Jets coaching staff have come out and said, no, we like our young group. No thanks. The Saints were a team that obviously here in New Orleans, people are hoping that DeAndre Hopkins goes to. That does make some sense. I don't know if we can do it financially, but it does make some sense to say, hey, let's go get DeAndre Hopkins. If Michael Thomas plays, all of a sudden you're looking at Hopkins, Thomas, and Chris Olave. That is an insane wide receiver room. And if Thomas doesn't play, this insulates you to where it's just Hopkins is your one, and then Olave is your two. And that's pretty powerful as well, especially with Derek Carr, who can push the ball downfield. So I would say the Chiefs are probably the top one there. Let's see what these young men say.
Well, first, Field, we should point out that DeAndre Hopkins is now a free agent, so that means he gets to pick the team as long as that team is interested in him. I bring that up because Hopkins has basically said that there are three priorities that he have, and you're going to get a laugh out of this because those three priorities are a stable front office, a great quarterback, and a great defense, which sounds like a pretty good list of things to pick from.
I'm sure that's everybody's list.
Choosing a team. Here's the deal. There are teams out there that would fit those desires in the Chiefs and the Bills, two teams that we should be watching very closely right now as it pertains to acquiring his services. Now, you can look at a team like the Chiefs and point out that they're right at that salary cap. They don't have much money to spend, probably not enough to acquire him, but you could see some manipulation of Patrick Mahomes' contract, for instance, to get them to that point. The Bills, by the way, also in a situation where they could find a way. Those are the two teams to watch, but certainly not the only teams.
The Bills would be good. I mean, the Bills would be another good one where, that's obvious. Captain Obvious checking in here that the Bills would be good if they got a top receiver here. But if you're Hopkins, and you can choose two of those two, if I'm Hopkins, I'm going to Kansas City. I would, because I think they are just one of those things where if you have a chance to get plugged into that offense, you have a chance to play with Patrick Mahomes. It's the same as Tom Brady back 10, 15 years ago, where if you have a chance to play with him, go play with him. Even if it's for a year, even if you have to take a cut to go spend a year playing with a player like that, you go do it. As a wide receiver, you got to imagine, I can take a chance at winning a Super Bowl. I'll probably have my best year in my career, and I can go make money somewhere else. So I would much rather choose the Chiefs than the Bills. But both teams are very solid landing spots.
after Hopkins' services.
All right, so Swagoo, as Jeff pointed out, we have the criteria. We also have the fact that it's his choice now as long as there's mutual interest. Which team do you think would be the best fit for DeAndre Hopkins?
Babyface, I got a question for you. If you were going to Vegas and you was betting all your money on an opportunity to win a championship, who would you put that money on?
Chiefs, for sure. Which is, he's about to say exactly what I just said.
Well, here's the good news. It wouldn't be that much money. I don't have much to my name, but I would go with the Chiefs.
That's the fit, bro. Listen, we are having conversations, and rightfully so, because DeAndre Hopkins is a free agent. But if the main priority is to try to win a championship, he should make that bet as well. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes, and there's this narrative growing about DeAndre Hopkins not being able to create separation, and he's a declining wide receiver. I don't know what world that we were watching where we ever thought DeAndre Hopkins was a super separator. What I do know is, like I said a couple months ago, he's one of the best off-schedule wide receivers in the NFL. Now,
look, here's the deal. DeAndre Hopkins, I don't know about him being a super separator or what we're throwing around here. DeAndre Hopkins is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, for sure. Is he at the downslope of his career? I suppose. But he is still a tier 1 S tier wide receiver, especially for the Chiefs, who just kind of rotate wide receivers. I mean, you're looking around with Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore, what they did last year with Juju Smith-Schuster. DeAndre Hopkins walks in here and he's the best receiver in the room. The Chiefs need him as much as he needs to go, would want to go to the Chiefs. It's a perfect fit. I mean, look at this. Hopkins, Moore, Toney, Kelsey. If you take Kelsey out, even though he's a receiver, he's a receiving threat. I mean, for the Chiefs, why would you not do this?
Now you tell me this. If DeAndre Hopkins went to Kansas City and Travis Kelce was lined up and you got Patrick Mahomes playing quarterback, and you look at this roster and you ask yourself, okay, out of all of these people in the AFC, one, who are you willing to bet on, and one, who is the nightmare matchup? You would point right to Kansas City. So if the money is not the biggest objective for DeAndre Hopkins, if it's about a championship, if it's about being able to still go be dominant, and one of his criteria, I thought I heard correctly, was playing with a really good quarterback. Well, you got an opportunity to play with the best one. Kansas City is the fit for me.
It's kind of amazing, too, how now with Kansas City being where they are as a franchise, 2 Super Bowls in 4 seasons, that they're going to always have opportunities. Anytime a notable player is released, he is going to be linked to the Chiefs if he cares about winning, and it may not be for top dollar. But another team that could be on the radar for DeAndre Hopkins is the Browns, as Deshaun Watson was asked today about a...
Oh, well, you got the Watson-Hopkins connection. I mean, it does make sense, right? Like, to bring Hopkins and Watson where they've had success before. You do have a tremendous amount of money tied up into Watson, so you might as well try and make the best out of it. Man, what a face we've paused on here. But, yeah, I mean, I could see it. I could certainly see it. The Browns as an organization are kind of the team that would do something like this. I didn't think about that, but it does make some sense.
A possible reunion with D-Hop in Cleveland.
Look, it typically is not Andy Reid's style to go after, an older wide receiver, add him to the group. It's just not typically his style. And so, look, could it happen? Maybe it does. But I look at Cleveland and I think they need to win in Cleveland. They're under the pressure.
Yeah.
The AFC is loaded. And if you're Kevin Stefanski and you want to keep your job, you need to get Deshaun Watson to play well. He would make that receiving core better. I don't think that team is that far away. And ultimately, I think they may end up, being able to pay more money to Hopkins, which, by the way, even when guys say it's not about the money, it still is also about the money.
Yeah, but he's going to get money regardless. Something else, I think it was Bill Walsh, said a wide receiver is like the last thing you should get. You know what? You should make sure everything else on your team is set, and then you get your receivers. I hope it was Bill Walsh. I hope I'm not misquoting. Cleveland, this feels like it's just, I don't know. It feels like this is just something to do. Like they're just kind of spinning their wheels. I don't know if getting Hopkins all of a sudden makes Cleveland a legitimate threat in the North, much less in the AFC. But that's an interesting thing, because on one hand, it does make sense to try and solidify this quarterback you've given $260 million of guaranteed money to. On the other side of things, it's like, guys, we've got a lot of other problems. We don't need to worry about going and getting DeAndre Hopkins. Like what is he going to do? What is he going to do in the immediate? He's definitely going to make the receiving room better, but for Stefanski, it would be like a Hail Mary, because if you go get DeAndre Hopkins and you bring him in, and this Browns team is average to bad or just replicates last year, he's gone. He's fired. Right? And then you have coaching turnover. Then you've got a $260 million guaranteed quarterback with a receiver you just brought in. You have no head coach. You've had 2 bad years. All of a sudden, then it's a complete disaster. So if I'm Cleveland, it's very high risk. Whereas Kansas City, there's virtually no risk to bring in DeAndre Hopkins. No risk at all. Cleveland and Kansas City are like the two opposite situations, where one, it makes perfect sense, no risk, win for all. The other side is like huge risk, could be a loss for all. That Cleveland's a wrinkle for sure.
So I could see him in Cleveland.
This is not a fight with Tim, because it's logical and it makes sense. But I would hope that if DeAndre Hopkins has all of those criteria, with the way we've seen Kansas City be able to move money around and sign people when we thought they had absolutely no cash, that would be the place, man. Like, I know we can make this complicated and we can talk about other destinations, but 9 times out of 10 so far, or 8 times out of 10, Patrick Mahomes is going to be in the conference finals. And then he's going to probably end up in the Super Bowl. If DeAndre Hopkins wants to get paid, because he ain't like we're talking about peanuts, and want a chance to win a championship, and tired of carrying quarterbacks, that's another conversation. Yeah. He carried so many quarterbacks in Houston. He had to go and carry Kyle in Arizona. Man, come on to Kansas City and fit in and just go catch for 1,000 yards and win a championship. That would be great for DeAndre Hopkins, and I'm hoping that's what happens.
Yeah, I will say, though, I did get a kick out of that criteria. It reminds me when you find someone who's looking for a home. They want a pool in a massive backyard with plenty of buildable property. They want to pay about 10% of what the home is actually worth.
This is one of the most interesting things in sports for a fan or for a commentator or an analyst or whatever to talk about is free agency. Because for us, it's easy to be like, hell yeah, I would just go to Kansas City, right? I would, if the option is $20 million in Cleveland or $10 million in Kansas City, I'll go to Kansas City. I'll go play for a Super Bowl. It'll be fun. But you never know. Like, it's hard to actually put yourself in the position of these players and think about what they are thinking when choosing these places, as far as where they want to live, who they want to play with, the coaches, the players they have relationships with, who they talk to, what they actually care about, like when they look at playbooks, when they look at things like that. It's just this is the biggest divide, I think, with people in my seat who are just kind of commentating on this, and then DeAndre Hopkins, and then the player that's actually choosing. It's hard. I kind of line up with Swagoo, where it almost makes too much sense to go to Kansas City. How can you overcomplicate it? How can you overthink it, depending on what he's actually offered? If he actually is offered to go to Kansas City, how could you mess it up? Just go to Kansas City for a season, take a smaller deal, a shorter term deal, and then go make a big contract somewhere else. If you have 1,400, 1,500 yards with Patrick Mahomes, who knows? But it's definitely interesting with a player like this of his caliber in today's NFL, where it's so high powered, and the teams that are available for him are the high powered teams. The Bills, the Chiefs. When you think of high powered offenses, you think of those teams. The fact that they could add DeAndre Hopkins is bananas. It's just an insane NFL that we're living in, for sure. But let me know in the comments below where you think the best spot for him, or where you hope he goes if you're a fan of the teams. Does he make sense for you? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching. We'll see you on the next video.